In 1979, the black-footed ferret was declared extinct. Not endangered, not rare, gone. The last known ones had died, the searches had turned up nothing, and the scientific consensus was final. One of North America's own native predators, a slim, masked prairie hunter that had lived on this continent for tens of thousands of years, was simply wiped off the list of living things. The book was closed. And then 2 years later, on a ranch in Wyoming, a dog named Shep walked up to the back porch one night and dropped a dead animal at his owner's feet. The rancher did not recognize it. He almost threw it away. Instead, on a hunch, he had it looked at. It was a black-footed ferret, the extinct animal, and where there was one dead one, there had to be more alive. That is not a legend. It is one of the best documented events in American wildlife history, and it is not even rare. Because extinction, the one word in all of biology that is supposed to mean forever, the final and permanent end, turns out to be a word we get wrong more often than almost anyone realizes. Again and again, in this country, an animal declared gone for good has quietly turned out to be still out there. Today we are looking at the American animals that came back from extinction. Not myths, not blurry footage, not cryptids, but real species that scientists officially declared gone, and that then turned up alive, confirmed, documented, breathing. There is even a name for them. Biologists call them Lazarus species, after the man in the story who was raised from the dead. And by the end, you will understand why the most unsettling one on this list is the one whose story is not finished yet. If this is the kind of thing that keeps your mind turning after dark, subscribe now. It takes 2 seconds. And tell me one thing in the comments. Do you believe any animal officially declared extinct is still out there right now? I want to hear it. Now let us begin with the dead. Start with what extinction is supposed to mean, because that is the whole reason these stories land the way they do. When a government wildlife agency declares a species extinct, it is not a guess. In the United States, the Fish and Wildlife Service does it only after what it calls rigorous review of the best available science, after the surveys come back empty year after year, after the experts agree there is no reasonable hope left. It is a deliberate, sober, official act, the scientific equivalent of signing a death certificate for an entire kind of living thing. In 2021, the service did exactly that for 23 species at once, including birds, fish, mussels, and a bat, animals it concluded were gone forever. And that is the point. Extinction is meant to be the one thing that cannot be undone. Every other status can change. Endangered animals can recover, threatened ones can rebound. But extinct is supposed to be the floor, the bottom, the end of the line. Which is exactly why it is so deeply strange, so genuinely unsettling, when the floor turns out not to be solid, and something climbs back up through it. Return to the black-footed ferret, because its story is even stranger than the porch and the dog. After that ferret turned up in Wyoming in 1981, biologists found a small surviving colony nearby, the last black-footed ferrets on Earth, a few dozen animals holding on in one patch of prairie. And then that colony began to die, hit by disease sweeping through it and through the prairie dogs it depended on for food. The species was about to go extinct a second time, for real this time. So scientists made a desperate decision. They captured the last 18 animals, every single black-footed ferret left alive on the planet, and brought them into a captive breeding program. Everything rested on those 18. If they failed to breed, the species was finished. But they bred. From that tiny founding group of 18 animals, thousands of black-footed ferrets have since been raised and released back onto the prairie. Every black-footed ferret alive today descends from those last 18. And the story went one step further, because in 2020 and the years after, scientists successfully cloned a black-footed ferret from cells frozen decades earlier, bringing genetic material from long-dead animals back into the living population. An animal declared extinct in 1979 is now being resurrected, twice over, first from a porch and then from a freezer. Now to the animal that was written off even earlier and came back at even greater scale. The southern sea otter, the same animal we met as the keystone of the Pacific kelp forests, was believed to be extinct by the early 1900s. The fur trade had hunted it so relentlessly along the California coast that the surveys stopped finding any at all, and the species was presumed gone from the state entirely, another casualty of the trade that had erased it up and down the coastline. Except a tiny group had survived, hidden along a remote and rugged stretch of the Big Sur coast, unseen and unreported for decades. When they were rediscovered, there were only a few dozen of them, the entire southern sea otter population of California hanging on in one hidden cove. From that remnant, the population has climbed back to around 2,000 animals today. Every southern sea otter along the California coast now descends from that one overlooked group that quietly refused to disappear, while the world had already declared them gone. We are at the point in this story where the pattern becomes clear, and if you are still here, you clearly want to understand what is really going on, so subscribe if you have not yet, because the reason these animals keep coming back is stranger than the comebacks themselves. Here is what all of these cases have in common, and it is the key to the entire phenomenon. Every single one of these animals survived by being unseen. The ferrets held on in one patch of remote prairie. The otters hid along one inaccessible stretch of cliff-bound coast. Extinction, it turns out, is not always the animal actually being gone. Sometimes it is only our failure to find it. A species can be declared extinct not because the last one died, but because the last ones we could find died, while a handful survived exactly where no one was looking. The animal never left. We simply stopped being able to see it and mistook our own blindness for its death. And that is what makes the next case the most haunting of all, because it sits directly on the line between the two. The ivory-billed woodpecker was the largest woodpecker in the United States, a magnificent black and white bird with a call people described as coming from another time, so striking that it earned the nickname the Lord God bird, because that is what people said when they saw it. Then the great bottomland forests of the American South were logged almost to nothing, and the bird vanished with them. The last universally accepted sighting in the United States was in 1944. For 60 years, it was treated as gone. And then, in 2004 and 2005, a team from Cornell University announced they had rediscovered it in the swamps of Arkansas. They had video footage. They had audio recordings of the distinctive calls and double knocks. The announcement stunned the world and triggered a frenzy. Millions of dollars in conservation funding, teams of searchers pouring into the bottomland swamps of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Florida, all hunting for a bird that had been dead for 60 years and might not be dead at all. But here is where it becomes genuinely unsettling. They could never prove it. The footage was blurry and fiercely disputed, with some of the world's top ornithologists arguing it showed only a common look-alike. Despite years of searching and $10 million spent, no one produced the clear, undeniable photograph that would end the debate. And so in 2021, the Fish and Wildlife Service moved to declare the ivory-billed woodpecker officially extinct, the death certificate signed at last. Yet even now, some serious researchers and birdwatchers refuse to give up, still returning to those swamps, still convinced the Lord God bird is out there in the deep forest, uncounted and unphotographed, exactly the way the ferret and the otter were before someone finally proved them alive. And that is the honest heart of this whole story. We want to believe extinction is final because the alternative is harder to sit with. The alternative is that our maps of the living world have holes in them, that a species can slip into those holes and vanish from every list while it is still out there breathing, and that the word extinct sometimes means nothing more than we looked, and we could not find it, and we gave up. The black-footed ferret was gone until a dog carried one to a back door. The sea otter was gone until someone found the last few hiding on a cliff. The ivory-billed woodpecker is officially gone right now, today, as you watch this. And there are people who have spent their lives in those swamps who will tell you, with complete sincerity, that official is not the same as true, and that the bird is still in there, waiting the way all the others waited, for someone to finally look in the right place. We did not stop seeing these animals because they wanted to hide. They were simply in the one place we were not looking, which for a wild animal in a vanishing wilderness is the safest place there is. So the next time you hear that something has been lost forever, that a species is gone, that the book is closed, remember the ferret on the porch, and the otters on the cliff, and a blurry gray shape flickering through the Arkansas swamp that half the experts swear is a ghost and the other half swear is alive. Extinct is a heavy final word. It is just not always a true one. If this is the kind of thing that keeps your mind turning after dark, subscribe and stay with the channel. And tell me in the comments, which animal do you believe is still out there waiting to be found?